All right, we're back. Still on the iPhone, still in this kind of makeshift setup. Camera's still not back from its rental, but that's besides the point. A lot of people are using RGB lights to light, let's say, their set, light a production, a commercial, their YouTube studio, and most of them are doing it wrong. You see, I think there's one key thing that most people neglect when they're using RGBW lights or RGB lights. And color is really what I'm talking about. You think if you just throw some blue and some magenta over here, or for my example, some red and yellow over there, you can call it cinematic. That's not the case. And I didn't throw that over there for this purpose. Those lights are just there because this is our event barn and we can swap those out and do whatever. That's just the last thing we had for whatever the stage was set up for in a previous event. That might change over time. Whatever, it's besides the point. The biggest problem I see that most people make is that they neglect the key light. Just because we're gonna use a lot of color doesn't mean we can't use a key light. And I'm not saying your color is your key light. I'm saying using a tungsten or a daylight or anywhere in between. Somewhere where that color matches your camera settings and you've got that skin tone not neglected anymore. From the biggest music stars in their music videos, just pushing color light to, big commercials or even narratives. One of the biggest differences you'll see between these well done versions of this and ones that feel cheap is that people neglected to use a key light. If you desaturated all the color and it was just black and white, would your scene still work? It's a good test to do. But you see it all the time. It's like, yeah, we're going to push color. It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool. Why does their skin not look good? Like, the colorist gets that footage and they're like, oh, what do you want me to do? Well, it was fun on the day, something different. No, do not sleep on using a key light. I've got a great example from a project that I worked on just a little while back where it was actually a free project. The director hit me up. This is for a performing theater arts program kind of thing. And it was to promote their show. And we were shooting on what we had available, except for I had a small little trick on my sleeve that I wanted to try. But we shot on the RED Mysterium-X and we shot in its HDR mode, which was new to me. Some of the things you got to look out for is ghosting, but in our scenario, there's not a lot of movement. So we were able to try and experiment. And I think we even did versions without HDR mode, but I also used Lomo spherical, Lomo vintage lenses in their original housing, which was its own unique thing. And of course, a Dana dolly. The biggest thing that I brought to the table for this kind of project, and I know we were going to use color, working with the director, the color ad would help give something simple a little more context and also blends well with the kind of branding that they're going to be doing for the rest of this, promotion. So here we are. I've got some visuals in front of me from some of the sets. I don't have very many BTS photos for this, but just bear with me. This is from memory. So we had 4 on-screen talent and we're shooting in this, theater with black walls. And this is not like the theater where you would invite all of your guests to come see. This is kind of like one of the behind the scenes theaters, one of the ones you're practicing in. This is where the challenge was to create 4 different looks on a very simple setup, also with no money. Despite this video talking about RGB lights and RGBW lights, this project was actually shot a little more old school, but it still applies. Mainly I'm just talking about color and using color in your scenes. We actually shot this project with 3 different Source 4s pushing light through gels, and we swapped out the gels for each talent depending on what their character and the kind of looks we wanted to go with. Honestly, it was up to us to bring difference and bring mood and let's try something different for each one, just so that there's some more life to it. But the big thing that most people sleep on is, there's color, so we just got to bounce color back in or push color towards the faces. No, the big thing that I did different was a whole array of 2K open face tungsten lamps through a couple different varieties of grid fabric. I think it was like full grid in the front, followed by half kind of thing. We just had them spread out to create a huge wall of light. Given that we were shooting this Mysterium-X, which is not a very sensitive camera, given that we're shooting older lenses and into black walls, but we also needed to make sure there was plenty of shadow detail. It was a little bit of a challenge, but we had some fun. And that's my biggest takeaway for this for people. Do not sleep on the tungsten, or do not sleep on a daylight source or whatever. You just gotta make sure you're matching your key light with your camera so that the skin has something to react to. One of my favorite examples is this magician. He's got this cool hat that's got like, you know, bones and like skulls on there. And he's got a very unique, you know, the way he talks to camera is very unique. And, you know, we've got these 3 source 4s in the back. We've got like a kind of a tealish followed by a strong, you know, CTS, or maybe just kind of yellow right behind them, and then a reddish color off to the other side. And that red isn't very prominent because it's competing through the yellow and through the tungsten, so it's not as strong as the teal until you move the camera. You know, I probably had a matte box. It might not have been something great. It could have even been like a Red Rock matte box. That's how low budget this project was. No shame to you, Red Rock. You made a matte box a long time ago and it did its thing for, I mean, leave a comment below if you've rocked a Red Rock matte box. Anyway, we were using, I think, a Red Rock matte box. So some of that contrast isn't always dialed in. Plus, these Lomo spherical lenses were unique in their own right. The PL mount on the back was like this spring-loaded, adaptable, kind of not from this country kind of thing that you had to pop off and put on the other lens when swapping lenses. Talk about low budget, but dude, the look, I love the look. I love me a Lomo spherical. I love me a Lomo square front. Anamorphic is fine, but you know, rather have the kind of round, circle front. Anamorphic's way better. But real quick, before I get too far, these source 4s are only visible because of the atmosphere. I mentioned we shot inside a small black, theater, and we shot in towards the corner of the room, trying to make this room feel infinite, where you don't see any edges. But without the atmosphere or the haze that we introduced, you wouldn't see this color. You're only seeing all those vibrant colors, whether it's the blue or the oranges or the yellows and the magentas and the greens. You only see that because it's reacting to the atmosphere in the air. But that atmosphere also does 2 things. It helped hide where the stage began and where it ended. You had to make sure you put it behind the subject so it's not too in between the camera and the subject, but close the doors, make sure you have full control over that room, and adding haze or atmosphere to any scene is a good trick on how to make your lighting feel more dynamic. Not only are we shooting in these dark rooms with some of the talent in all black leather kind of thing, is we're losing light pretty quick. And once again, the RED Mysterium-X HDR, it was kind of a hope and pray kind of moment, but we definitely got some exposures that I'm very proud of. And one of the biggest kickers is this project won me some of my first awards for cinematography. I didn't submit this project, but the director did, and so did the clients, the agency, and yeah, we got some awards out of this, which is pretty cool. And here's a pro tip for any of you who come across a free project. When working on a free project, I think one of the biggest things you can bring to the table is experimentation. On this project, we shot with a RED Mysterium-X. That's a camera that I wasn't quite used to, but with a little bit of trial and error, it was the camera we had access to, and it was fine. But what I brought to the table for me was wanting to shoot with these Lomo spherical lenses. Figuring that some of the things we were shooting had more of a vintage style to it, I thought, let's pair this nicely with some vintage lenses. Now, the only downside was that I didn't get a chance to do a real camera prep with them. They just shipped from some friends across the west coast of Missouri, aka Kansas City. The shipper was able to get them to me pretty much the day before our shoot day. The camera was coming from the agency, so I didn't have any time to actually do a real camera prep. So that's the big downside. But my big push for you guys is when you're doing a free project and it makes sense for the project and it doesn't take away anything, but it maybe gives you a chance to try something new, or many times it can just elevate a project. Go ahead and try something different. Try those lenses you've been wanting to do. Shoot on anamorphic or try out some vintage lenses, as long as it doesn't take away from the project. Even if the budget is free, there's ways to make it look great and make sure the client's happy and you're happy, and of course the director's happy. So, big tip for free projects, it's okay to try something different. Have some fun. All right, back to it. At the end of the day, it's okay to try a weird glass. It's okay to push yourself. On these free projects, this is the best time to do it. Just make sure that the clients walk away with something they're happy with. I mean, for me, for this project, the clients won awards. They were recognized for the quality we were able to bring to the table. And it's those relationships that are important that you can continue to build with the director for future projects down the road. I say that almost as a hypothetical because I did not get to work with this director again. He owes me one. This industry is built on helping each other out. And of course, the paid jobs will come and you'll be able to help your friend out when they need, or hop on a different production and give them a hand. And you know that there's a kind of an unspoken rule of these favors kind of come back and forth. So when you're early off in your career, you might be feeling like you're helping out more than you are receiving, but things will come around. So be vulnerable, try some different stuff. I'm not anti-RGB or RGBW. In fact, many of the lights I use on set are LEDs, and they have that full color spectrum. And in fact, it's made it a whole lot easier for productions to use LED lights, and it saves me the headache of letting a Source 4 cool down before I swap the gels, or, burning a hand, or, just dealing with hot lights on set. Just raises the overall temperature of the room. Don't get me wrong, the tungsten look is still one of my absolute favorite looks. What happens when you dim down a tungsten light is pretty top notch. But I'm just saying in general, don't sleep on using a traditional key light when you're using colorful lights. You don't have to use tungsten lights exactly, but use an LED that's set to a tungsten or a 32 or 38, or just something that matches your key source. Don't sleep on adding that layer. The skin tones will be appreciative, and so will your colorist. If you want to see more of my work, you can check out StevensCGreathouse.com. Thanks for watching. Peace.